Robert Steiglitz versus Felix Sturm. For those who don't know, it was a draw. I think one judge gave it 1 round to Sturm, one gave it 1 round to Steiglitz. One scored it exactly a draw, and it's hard to argue with the result. I was following it, I wasn't watching live, I was following the fight on Twitter, and it seemed that a few people had Steiglitz ahead. Possibly on my Twitter, a few more had Felix Sturm ahead. I've had a look. Thoughts are that Steiglitz was noticeably the bigger man, possibly the stronger, younger, fresher man. He came forward with a lot more aggression, and stylistically, as I suggested in my pre-fight video, put the pressure on, was a more volume puncher. Felix Sturm relied more on sort of accuracy, quality of work, sort of technical boxing, if you like. There were times, as is classic Sturm, that his punch output was perhaps lower than you'd like to see, and it did sort of seem to be a fight where it kind of depended on what you preferred and how you like to judge the fight, because there were certain rounds where maybe Sturm was landing the cleaner work, but there just wasn't enough of it, and Robert Steiglitz was sort of putting the pressure on and, you know, piling on the aggression and being the one who was coming forward and dictating the pace a bit more. Either way, it was a very, very close fight. You couldn't really complain with either result. Felix Sturm, for me, it was an improved performance from his fight with Sam Solomon. I think Robert Steiglitz is a better fighter than Solomon, and I think possibly there's some suggestion that at 35 years of age, maybe Felix Sturm was a bit drained making the middleweight limit after all of those years at middleweight. So that would perhaps be an explanation as to why we saw a slightly rejuvenated performance from him. My concern is that Robert Steiglitz isn't the most technical boxer. He's more of an athlete, sort of come forward presser fighter. Now, in this fight, there were times where Sturm was out of his comfort zone by Steiglitz, who was a bigger, stronger man, and you sort of used that to his advantage. Now, Sturm kind of got away with it because Steiglitz isn't the most technical fighter, and Sturm was able to pick his shots, use his accuracy, use his technical ability. My worry for Sturm as a super middleweight is when he comes up against an opponent who has Steiglitz's size and athleticism and strength at the weight, but also perhaps has a slightly more advanced technical ability than Steiglitz, and isn't just an athlete, you know, a sort of come forward fighter, if you like. I think Felix Sturm has the potential to get found out at 168 at that level, and for what it's worth, for the time being, I'd probably pick Arthur Abraham ahead of Felix Sturm should they fight. I'd also probably pick George Groves, James DeGale over Felix Sturm. I think they're bigger men who could use their size and use the sort of come forward aggression like Robert Steiglitz did, but have the sort of technical ability not to allow Sturm to appear to be landing the cleaner work and the more sort of refined boxing. So I think Felix Sturm is in a bit of a rock and a hard place in terms of where he goes in terms of world championship level fights. The positive for him is he's got such a following in Germany and such a fan base, and this fight was quite an entertaining fight, that there does have to be scope that he can get some sort of big name matchups just off the back of his name. I think obviously Steiglitz and Abraham have already fought 3 times, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if Abraham preferred to go down the Sturm route with his popularity for another fight. Perhaps he could fight Arthur Abraham. Even if he lost that fight, perhaps he could fight Robert Steiglitz again. So perhaps he doesn't need to worry about, you know, conventional world titles. Perhaps there's paydays for him going down, you know, the Abraham and, you know, the Steiglitz rematch route. Also, obviously, he's promoted. I'm not sure if he's promoted actually, but in Germany you've got the Sauerlands promoting Mikhail Kessler, who's looking for an opponent. Also George Groves. So you never know what matchups there could be for Felix Sturm, but I don't really view Sturm as a realistic world title challenger at 168, and I think he would likely get outdone by a genuine top 5, top 6, top 7 super middleweight. So I think, somebody with real top level technical skills is going to be able to have the size and the sort of also punching volume to get him beat. So it's a very, very entertaining fight, this one. Steiglitz, I'm yet to be convinced about him at the top level. I thought he'd have enough to beat Sturm. I thought he beat Sturm stylistically, and I thought he was a bit fresher than Sturm, so I was a bit disappointed not to see him get the nod in this one. As I say, he's in the situation where he's in that German scene with Kessler, Abrahams, a Sturm rematch, so there still are paydays out there for both of these guys. I don't really see them as realistic top 5 super middleweights, in my honest opinion. I think Andre Ward, Andre Durrell, Anthony Durrell, Carl Frotz, James DeGale, Arthur Abraham, maybe even the likes of George Groves, Mikhail Kessler, you'd have to say is performing at a better level than these two these days. And you'd probably have to pick any of those guys over either of the competitors, in my opinion. However, whilst I'm saying that they're not, top 5, top 6 super middleweights, and, maybe their best days are behind them, still a very entertaining fight, real hard fight to score. It's one of those that really depends what you prefer in terms of sort of class your work from Sturm or volume and output from Steiglitz. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the fight. How did you score it? Thanks very much for watching.